G'day, mate, and welcome to the How to Survive podcast. I'm Joe. Joining me as ever is Chris. Hello, mate. G'day, mate.
I'm not doing an accent. It's offensive. It's offensive to people.
To who, mate?
To real Australians.
What do you mean, real Australians?
Like Mick Jarrett.
Yeah. You call that a podcast? This is a podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Went fishing the other day, caught me a snothead, hagfish. Me old Bowie knife out, mate. You should have seen the growler. He was a big one.
This is the tightened up version.
Welcome to the How to Survive podcast. My name is Joe. Joining me as ever, Chris Morris.
Hello.
Ignoring the cultural opportunities.
Is this like you go to a foreign country and you're like, oh, to show them respect, I'll speak English in a funny foreign accent so they can understand it.
Yeah, so I have nothing but respect for the movie Wolf Creek. So
yes.
I want that to be made clear at the top.
The Greg McLean 2005 film.
Yeah.
Where have we seen Greg McLean before?
Belko, mate.
Yes.
Belko experiment.
That other sensitive portrayal of violence on screen.
Well, we have to say up top now because of was it that guy wanted the emails? Yeah,
so we've started doing a little brief chat about the film, very brief, before we recap.
Did you like Wolf Creek?
It was okay. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would, which is not the same as liking it.
Would you recommend people watch it on Netflix where it's available to watch?
If they like grungy, early noughties, unpleasant horror movies, then fill your boots.
You certainly
throw another Wolf Creek on the Barbie.
So how's that not racist? All right, okay, fine. That's basically my review as well. If you like this sort of thing, then it's the sort of thing for you.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about the movie at length, mate.
Yeah, we are.
We're gonna cut it open and see what's inside.
Lovely. You're gonna dismember it.
Yeah.
Leave it a film on a stick.
Ugh. What a film. What a film.
If you haven't seen Wolf Creek, then now's your last chance to duck out before the spoiler wall comes crashing down. It's available on Netflix in the UK, and I'm sure any other country that has a lack of moral character.
Yeah, I've written to my MP about this.
Yeah.
I want it removed from Netflix.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on the How to Survive podcast. If you've never listened before, then we're not normally this incoherent.
Yeah.
We talk about the movies. We talk about how we would survive in movies. But before we do that, we like to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and the film's cultural context, because we are a wanky podcast above all else.
Liberal media intelligentsia giving too much thought to rubbish films.
That's it. That's all right. So, without further ado, I'm going to throw on with a very quick recap of the film. And that's after this.
Captain's log. So far, no sign of intelligent life forms.
Wow. That's awesome.
Looks like we might be spending the night.
What the hell?
Just stay in the car.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
So, where did you live?
Oh, I get around, you know. Never know where I might pop up.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. He's gonna kill him. Let's play.
So this maybe is the quickest recap ever because there's like 3 things that happen in it.
Okay. Well, normally your recaps are quite long-winded, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Liz, Ben and Christy are friends travelling across the Australian outback on a road trip. They plan to visit some tourist spots along the way, including the famous Wolf Creek, a crater left by a meteorite thought to have somewhat supernatural traits. That's 45 minutes of the film. They hike for hours to the crater and find to their surprise that their watches all stop during the journey. When they arrive back at their car, they find that the electrics have failed on the car as well. They spend the night sleeping in the car, but are awoken by a truck approaching. The truck is driven by Mick, a friendly but rough around the edges country bumpkin who offers to tow them back to his campsite to repair the car.
Rough around the edges.
That's how he appears, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
Mick tows them for hours until they are resolutely lost. They share stories with Mick around a campfire and fall asleep as Mick begins to work on their car, promising them that it will be sorted by morning. Liz wakes up bound and gagged in a shed.
It is a little bit of a strange cut, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she goes to sleep peacefully by the fire.
Yeah.
And how did he get all 3 of them?
Liz wakes up bound and gagged in a shed. Using a piece of broken glass, she cuts her restraints and sneaks around the camp. She hears Christy screaming for help from a nearby shed, and there she finds Mick taunting her with a loaded rifle. It is evident that he's raped her, and she is covered in blood. He is now tormenting her by shooting at her and deliberately missing. Liz creates a diversion by blowing up a gas canister and sneaks into the shed. When Mick returns, Liz shoots him with a rifle and he falls down unconscious. Liz frees Christy, and as they escape in Mick's truck, Mick appears, a revenant, and shoots at them with a shotgun. They escape and they cover their tracks by pushing the truck off a cliff and pretending that they fell to their deaths. Mick shows up and climbs down the ravine to investigate the truck. Using that as cover, they run back to the camp to find another vehicle to escape in. As Liz explores the camp, she finds that Mick has done this many times before. By this, I mean kidnap and murder.
She finds a camcorder, doesn't she?
Yeah, from other people.
Which is a family.
Yeah, fine.
Which is nice with 2 little children. And then also looks through the footage of her own camcorder.
Well, Ben's camcorder.
Ben's camcorder, and sees that his truck was in the background of a rest stop.
Changes everything.
Well, it just means that he followed them there from wherever, from a long way away.
She finds a set of car keys and gets in a car. The engine starts and she leans back, relieved to finally be able to escape. But unfortunately, Mick is already in the car somehow. He stabs her in the back and then severs her spinal cord with a knife.
Yeah.
Christy,
rendering her a head on a stick,
as he puts it.
Mm.
Christy escapes on foot and flags down a passing motorist. The motorist begins to help, but Mick shoots him from a distance with his rifle. Christy tries to escape in the motorist's car, but Mick gives chase, eventually catching and killing her. Back at the camp, Ben is revealed to be alive and kept in restraints. He escapes and runs into the desert, where he is found by some tourists who take him back to civilization. The movie ends with the claim, on-screen text, that is, that Ben was held for 4 months on suspicion of the women's murders, but eventually released due to lack of evidence, and that their bodies were never found. This was a true story, Chris. A gripping, true, real-life story. This all happened.
Yeah.
Every second. This is basically a documentary.
Yeah, it's based on real murderers. Ivan Milat. And also Bradley John Murdoch, apparently. But from what I read, the release of the film was postponed because the Bradley John Murdoch trial was ongoing. So as not to prejudice the trial. So they delayed the release of the film. So I'm not sure how true that is. But to say it's based on a true story is not completely true.
Well, we'll come to that when we talk about that. But I want to know, first and foremost, the question that was on everyone's lips, mate.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Well, it's an Ozploitation film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much in the same vein as The Loved Ones, Cargo.
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
I don't think it does enough with the landscape that it has. it doesn't use the amazing landscapes that Australia has in the same way that Cargo does, for example.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it nearly as much as I was expecting I would. And though it's extremely nasty all the way through, it just about avoids straying into hostile territory, I think, for me at least. I think there are some dodgy British accents on show, and some research proved that the two main actresses are in fact Australian.
Pretending to be British.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think you can hear that Australian inflection when they're panicked,
Yeah.
which is distracting for me during the sort of heightened moments of the film. Although perhaps I was just looking for any distraction that I could find. And Mick feels a lot, I thought, like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
In that he takes an almost sort of pantomime level of joy from the things that he's doing. And also he wears a big hat.
Yeah, that's true. No scars or knives though. Well, one big knife.
One big knife. I didn't enjoy it, but it didn't offend me, I guess, is the difference. It's sort of it just had a sort of low hum of like nastiness all the way through it.
I think you say all the way through it. That's not true. The movie is completely like boring and fine.
It's almost not a traditional like horror movie, and I think that's what I was expecting. I was expecting like a
slasher film,
right? Or like a that spate of remakes, like the Hills Have Eyes remake, or the where it's just a sort of fairly rote horror movie plot.
But go get gas. They say don't go into the woods. They go into the woods. There's a murderer.
Yeah, but shot in that sort of early noughties style where
it's like a music video.
But everything was disgusting and like covered in filth and just really unpleasant. And it's actually sort of for the first 45 minutes. If you had absolutely no idea what was going on, then the twist that Mick was evil would probably come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But then that's not necessarily a good thing because it's literally like they go to sleep in one film and wake up in another.
Yeah. It is the case. It's weird because the movie sets up early on aliens. Ben is very preoccupied by lights in the sky and alien encounters.
Yeah,
the creator could be brought here by aliens. And, they're all a bit stonery. And like that stuff happens quite late in the first part of the film.
Yeah.
But you open on them like just
partying and stuff.
Partying, but there's the conversation, the dialogue's naff. It's just like I can't imagine any human being saying any of these things or doing any of these things. There's a scene where like Ben gets like loads of vodka thrown on him and he's like, I'm a crazy party animal, and he jumps in the pool and they're like, he's so cute, I hope I can marry him. But it's just like fucking and then they get in the car and they're like, can't wait till we get to drink again, huh? And I'm like, okay, I get it. Just get on with the film.
Just a trio of fun-loving,
but they're not
friends.
They're not people I'd want to spend time with. They're just annoying, and that's the problem that often horror movies have, is that they don't have likable characters. I think the two women win me over by the end because they
go through hell.
But they not even that. But before that happens, they have conversations where it doesn't really pass the Bechdel test, does it? This movie, they just talk about how much they like Ben.
Yeah.
But at least
it's like if it is a true story, then it makes a lot of sense that all their conversations are about how great Ben is because he's the only one who survived.
Exactly.
So it's like, while he was being interrogated for 4 months, he was like, and then they went over and they just talked about how great I am for about half an hour.
Yeah, they both wanted me, but I don't know. He's just a douchebag, isn't he, Ben? Just like say this surfer dude. Yeah, he's like if Patrick Swayze's character in Point Break was like a shit version of him. Like Patrick Swayze in Point Break's shit younger brother.
Yeah, he would have tribal tattoos. He'd have like a little tribal necklace.
Thumb ring.
Yeah. He's a bit of a knob.
Yeah.
Basically. He's an early noughties, like, rap metal connoisseur.
Yeah, right. He's been a Linkin Park.
All right.
LinkedIn Park.
Yeah. LinkedIn Park. That's good.
Okay. Now, the main problem I've got with this movie, there are a few, but the main one is the problem with claiming that it's based on true events.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not. This is from the film critic Paul Burns, who I'm borrowing from. Wolf Creek is not directly based on a true story, although a title at the start says based on actual events. It was suggested partly by the gruesome details of the backpacker murders committed by Ivan Miller in the 1990s, but these murders were committed in a state forest near Sydney. Wolf Creek relocated its killing spree to a much more foreboding and lonely landscape in the Australian desert, partly because it wanted the power of isolation, and partly it's about the myth of the friendly Aussie bushman, typified by Paul Hogan as Mick Dundee.
Yeah.
Mick Taylor is the evil inversion of Hogan's tourism building knockabout Northern Territory bloke.
Yeah, and I think that's quite obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. He even, that's not a knife, this is a knife. It's a Crocodile Dundee quote.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think, serial killers have targeted backpackers in the outback, as you said, and I think they have an ongoing issue with the exploitation of travellers as well, which makes things quite difficult. To stay in Australia for a long period, you have to like earn your visa, right, by working.
Yeah.
And a lot of people choose to work on farms, which are in rural parts of Australia,
Yeah.
and are subject to quite poor working conditions. And I think a lot of, especially young women, report certainly unwanted sexual advances, and a number of people over the course of years have gone missing or been found to have been killed.
The number at the beginning, 30,000 people a year or something?
30,000 a year go missing.
That's insane. That's
But
so
then
many people.
It says 90% of them. I mean, it's a bit of a weird statistic, isn't it? Because it says 90% of them are found within 1 month. But that's like, how many of them are found within an hour? How many of them are found within 10 minutes? It doesn't make any sense.
30,000 people is a lot of people.
There's a lot of people who live in Australia, although not as many as a country that size.
Would normally have.
You fact checking it.
Yeah, I don't buy that. So 1% of the Australian population, according to this, goes missing every year.
Right.
That's stupid. Of course they don't.
I don't.
That means 1 in 100 people.
But then it also
are
says that
missing.
it's a true story. So like, how much are we?
Yeah.
Supposed to take it?
Yeah. Here's some notes I made before I did that research and found out that true story claim is embellished.
That research.
So the problem I had with it was like the only witness was tied up for the entirety of the film in the back of the property.
Yeah.
Therefore, he obviously did it. Like, he's the guy. He could,
right.
It's
not based on a true story.
No,
is it?
no, but this is
yeah,
what-
you are right in that. If this was an adaptation of a true story, who's telling the story?
Yeah, exactly.
The only explanation is either Ben or Mick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But the thing is, you ever listen to that My Favorite Murder podcast?
no, not really.
What they often bang on about on that is so when police come up to a murder and like one witness says it was a shaggy haired man or like a big guy, but they don't have any like concrete details.
Yeah.
Generally, they did it, right? There's certain descriptions which mean
Well, they're lying about who did it.
right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably what Ben is doing. Like, oh no, it was a big guy with a knife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was it? Don't know. Where were you? Don't know. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm always a bit uncomfortable. And this is based on real life events, even if it is those backpacker murders, right? I'm always a bit uncomfortable with when real events are dramatized based on speculation.
Yeah.
And it's a problem with any dramatization of any tragedy because you, as the writer, are putting words in the mouths of the victims, which seems a little bit cheap or seems a little bit unfair.
Mm-hmm.
So Titanic, as a counterpoint, is a blockbuster movie, obviously very hysterical at times, very melodramatic, but it puts the words that are reported to have been used by the actual real people in their mouths, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get, like, Rose and Jack are made up, but the captain, there is records of what he said. There's records of what the...
But then, like, how much can you trust that stuff anyway?
But still, you're going on testimony.
Going on report.
Yeah, exactly, eyewitness. Similarly, Chernobyl, with, I know you're watching that at the moment, it's airing on Sky or whatever.
Yeah.
I read a book about that recently before the series started, and a lot of the stories in that talk about the similar people, and the phrasing and the words that are used in that book are identical to what they use in the show.
But then would you agree that those events are both, much more widely documented than the supposed murder of 2 women in the outback,
which didn't actually happen.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I mean, though. Is like, obviously it can't do those things because the event didn't exist. So the problem that you're having really is with a film that's masquerading as true when it's not.
Yeah.
But doing it when the subject matter is so unpleasant.
Right, exactly. Because that, saying this is a true story, I'm immediately thinking, oh my God, people went through this.
Yeah.
Right? And that's...
But it's the same with, right, so like the Coen brothers did it with Fargo.
Yeah.
They're, to my knowledge, I think like one of the earlier films to do that, or certainly one of the most famous examples. The reason they do that is because the events that happen in Fargo are so outlandish that by putting the thing that says it's a true story at the start, you are, as an audience, more receptive to the idea of everything happening.
Yeah, because it's all coincidence and timing, right?
Yeah, and whereas if it's just a film and they didn't have that, then perhaps audience members would be like, oh, well, it's just a bit like, ridiculous that this and this happened, right? But by just putting that context into people's minds, it immediately makes it more believable, right?
Yeah.
So to do that at the start of a horror movie, if you felt like it's more horrible because people actually went through it, then it's mission accomplished on their part, isn't it?
Sort of. I don't think that they were intending to horrify me in the same way, though.
Right.
It's a concern. It's a problem I have watching Chernobyl as well, to an extent. It's that it's very entertaining for us to watch it.
Yeah.
But it is, that takes away from the fact that it's a human tragedy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If someone was really suffering in a situation, and there's a shot in Chernobyl when they're going through the radiated water, and it's cut like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like someone sneaking out a haunted house. And it's very compelling, it's very scary, but it's like, well, these guys did this. This is like...
Yeah, it's like a distancing effect because it's stylized.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you're like, it almost detracts from the fact that it's real, because the more that you make it feel like a horror movie, the less it feels like real life.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. So that's my problem with it. Is I understand why having the true, based on true events works.
Yeah,
and grounding you in the film.
But then with Chernobyl, maybe that's a point, like a point that subtracts from the show, because they are trying to portray real events. Whereas Wolf Creek, the events aren't real, so there's no responsibility to show it in a respectful manner and to not stylize it and hype it up, because the events aren't real.
True.
Like, you could say that, is it right to make entertainment from, the general context of a real life tragedy? Like, I don't know, let's say if they made an action movie about a group of terrorists with machetes attacking a London market,
right, during
a drinking time, like a post-work drinks sort of time day.
Grenfell Tower survival, right?
Right, yeah, something like that. That would be grossly offensive, obviously. But like, does that mean that you can't have any burning building films in London? I don't know. Like I don't.
It's a difficult one, and it's we talked about this in the past, and we have done other tragedy movies, Titanic or Everest. We didn't do a How to Survive for Everest because that was basically a dramatization of
real events.
Yeah, but a documented journalist events version.
Yeah,
rather than what this appears to be, which is embellished to the point of fiction.
Yeah,
hearsay. Yeah. But I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way a bit. Having that.
Sorry, I understand why.
It's an unpleasant film.
Yeah.
How do you think it stacks up against other movies we've covered in terms of its unpleasantness?
The top hitters in the unpleasantness genre?
Yeah.
I don't think it's up there with the likes of Saw or Hostel or Cannibal Holocaust. I don't think it's up there with The Loved Ones either. I think there's a lack of injury detail in this film in comparison to that stuff. The violence isn't that graphic, I don't think, at any point really, aside from when Liz gets her fingers chopped off. But in terms of sound, the sound of her spine being cracked, apparently, that's really horrible and really unpleasant. But that's quite a sort of creative way of conveying that when you compare it to something like Saw. I think, though, that there's a degree of realism and sort of non-hysteria, like a lack of hysteria with the violence throughout the film that makes it feel quite unpleasant. Like, you know, Saw is more unpleasant, but also half the time they're in outlandish traps.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas this is just a man who has preyed upon vulnerable people.
Yeah. I think the would-be rape is pretty rough going to watch as a film. I mean, obviously worse, whatever, to be involved in it, but it's rough going in terms of the context of the film because it's the most upsetting scene I found anyway. I'm sure you'd agree. Apparently people on the set were like crying because it was so realistic and because it went on for so long. She was like screaming and
I think you know that must be so exhausting to film things like that and to make yourself go to that sort of place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty rough. I think it's less palatable than Hills of Eyes or Cannibal Holocaust because it feels so authentic and realistic in that way. Like Cannibal Holocaust, other than the actual violence on animals, I knew it was fake and it's obviously very silly. It's offensive, but it's not, you know, the violence in it didn't offend me as much.
Okay.
Hills of Eyes as well is just stupid. Right? It's just a rubbish film.
Yeah. I mean, you found this more offensive than Cannibal Holocaust?
I wouldn't say offensive. I think I found it harder going.
Right. It's less unpleasant.
It's more unpleasant, I think.
This is more unpleasant than Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust is just stupid. It's just
but it's just like there's like group rape and stuff in Cannibal Holocaust, which is...
Yeah, but it's... Yeah, that's true. I can't remember. Maybe I'm seeing Cannibal Holocaust through rose-tinted glasses. I don't know. This feels like a very grounded movie where those other ones felt very hysterical.
Yeah, I suppose. I know what you mean, yeah.
Like you said, a guy in a room with
a big knife is
somewhat scarier than a group of savages who
possibly.
Do you think its unpleasantness makes it less enjoyable as a horror movie?
Well, I think we've talked a lot about the way in which like a certain type of horror movie violence makes for a sort of viscerally unpleasant viewing experience, like not a roller coaster experience, but a sort of endurance test or a test of how repulsive you're willing, you know, what sort of repulsion you're willing to put up with.
Let's see, Martyrs or Cannibal Holocaust.
Right, I think the nature of the sort of head on a stick fate of Liz carries with it a sort of repulsive tone of sexual violence, especially as we've already seen that Mick has no qualms with torturing and raping and dismembering his victims. I mean, I guess you could give the film credit for not showing anything like that explicitly, but I think the implication of it is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Especially as we don't see her die.
No, exactly. Yeah.
I think that sort of stuff makes it less enjoyable because it's less fun to watch a horror movie when you're just watching a tied woman screaming and crying in what is such an intense and believable manner.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And yeah, like the fate of Liz is quite distressing.
Yeah, it's upsetting. It's the sort of thing that sticks with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the movie from my mind, right, it's trying to be something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And
it's hillbilly horror, isn't it?
It's hillbilly horror, exactly. I think they have some similarities, which is fundamentally woefully vulnerable people stumble into the lair of an overpowered nemesis who wants to mutilate them for fun. The key difference, I think, is that Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an agent of chaos and mental illness, and he's like one of the all-time great terrifying villains.
Yeah,
because he just doesn't care, right? He just kills because that's what he does. And later you learn that he's kind of a victim himself because he was raised in this really like horrible environment where cannibalism is fine, and like to some extent he never knew any different. That's just what he was. That's
He's
all
the
he
product
knows.
of his family.
Right, it's his nature. Whereas Mick is different because he relishes it.
Yeah.
Like he's chosen to live this way and act this way and do these things.
Leatherface is like a monster, isn't he? He's monstrous.
Yeah.
And like can't form sentences and is deformed and
But Mick is like, I don't know.
A person who uses his charm.
Yeah.
He's a psychopath in like the classic sense, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He finds it gratifying and thrilling to kill and mutilate people. And although the movie does a good job of portraying something which feels authentic, I think generally it takes a very voyeuristic perspective on the violence.
Right.
So you said it doesn't stray into the like hostile territory, and there's no details of wound or anything like that, which is true. But think of that scene where he's got a gun pointed at Christie. That whole thing takes place from, our perspective is Liz's perspective, which is literally voyeuristic. We're looking through a window hidden in shadow. So it's kind of like both people are placed on the same. You're not in the victim. You're not in the. So it's like centrist torture porn, I guess.
Yeah, objective viewpoint on it.
Yeah. So that's
like a peeping Tom type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's not saying that, hey, this is how bad would this be if it happened to you, or imagine doing this to someone. It's just like, this is the thing, which is.
Yeah, I guess it's putting you in Liz's shoes though, right? Because she wants to help her friend, but she can't. And I guess whether or not that's good or satisfying or,
centrist, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's not saying, look, there's 5 people on both sides. The murderer and the murderee.
Yeah.
Both have a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
So
it's saying, look, some people on this side just want to live and people on the other side want to murder them, and we must find a compromise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the marketplace of ideas, we'll see what wins out.
Yeah.
So does it do anything original or interesting?
Not really, no.
I thought I like the fake out supernatural stuff.
I did that passed me by. If I'm being honest, it didn't really register for me.
Really?
Like I remember it being in there, but it didn't leave a lasting
but you
impression.
knew it was about a murderer.
Well, yeah, but so did you.
Yeah, but then I was like,
but yeah, it didn't.
It takes a fucking long time for him to show up, and
at
that point you're like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably if aliens were planted in your brain, they could probably stay there until Liz wakes up tied up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's what happened. Maybe he is an alien. There's a Wolf Creek sequel, Wolf Creek 2, and there's also a TV series.
Really?
Yeah.
With Mick?
Yeah, which is, I think, it's been running for 3 seasons.
Why?
Mate, I don't know. Maybe it's revealed to be aliens. Who knows?
Hope so. Another similarity with Fargo.
Yeah.
So, how on earth, Chris, if you were unfortunate enough to be picked up in the dead of night by Mick and taken back to his camp, how would you survive?
Well, it's time for a How to Survive top tip. It's one that's come up again and again, and it's advice for Liz, which is take your chances. For goodness sake, take your chances. It doesn't matter if you don't have any bullets, all right? When you've shot Mick through the neck and he's unconscious on the ground, she tries to shoot him and can't. Yeah. And then she hits him once with the butt of the rifle in
twice,
his back.
Actually, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in the back.
And then runs away, right? Now, he's got a big knife that he's just been brandishing. Yeah. Just cut his head off. Just cut his
tie him up
ear to ear.
At a minimum, tie him up.
Well, just like clearly they think he's dead, all right? What I'm saying is that no court in the no jury will ever convict you if you stab him 100 times, all right?
Yeah.
Because
they might.
I don't think they would. You might get mutilation of a corpse or whatever.
But you killed him
within the context. Yeah, but as in if you shot him dead and then cut his body to ribbons.
I see what you mean. So the job's done.
Yeah. Like
the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah.
I
think she needs to take her opportunity there, and she ends up her head on a stick, and it's her own fault, and she gets what she deserves.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Keeping that in
there.
No,
I stand by it. Yeah. So, what do you think about my survival idea? Just take chances.
Yeah, take them.
No,
I was thinking, I thought the same thing.
She has no problem with killing because she
just tried to.
Shoots him in the neck, right?
Yeah, she hits him in the back. I'd smack him around the back of the head.
Yeah, well, if you've got a rifle, you could smash his head to pieces with it.
Tie him up.
Like, he's obviously not dead and he's going to regain consciousness at some point. But he's not going to regain consciousness if you're repeatedly bashing his head into bits.
No, exactly. Like, I'm a mixed martial artist, as you know. And
ding, ding, ding.
typically, being punched in the head or hit in the head is not good for you. Right? In my mixed martial arts career, I've learned that fact.
Right.
Which you may not know as a normie. You probably don't know that being hit hard in the head will render you confused.
Yeah,
and it hurts
concussed.
a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
So just smash him in the fucking head with a rifle loads of times. Beat his head into a pulp. I agree with you. I like your style. Spoken like a man.
Mm.
Do you want my first tip?
Yeah.
It's a very similarly placed tip, which is when you're going to shoot someone and you've never fired that gun before, just close the distance.
But he's going to grab it off her, isn't he?
She's like 6 meters away. She could halve that and he'd still be.
But she does hit him.
Does she kill him?
No, but she's just trying to shoot him anyway. Like, if she's never fired a rifle before, I think she'd take that as a win. Like, if you offered that to her,
Yeah.
like, if you said, right, you're going to shoot this rifle and it's going to hit him in the neck, right?
Mhm.
Or you can close the distance and you might hit him somewhere else. I think you'd take distance plus neck.
What about this though? You can take a shot now for free and it will hit him in the neck, but you will end up a head on a stick.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But that's not. There are a lot of stages between her shooting him and her becoming a head on the stick.
But if she'd closed the gap and shot him in the head,
I don't know. I think if you've got a long range weapon, like we're going to go see John Wick in a bit, and I reckon John Wick would not necessarily close the distance, but if he did, he'd be able to deal with it. So
yeah, he would have made the most of his opportunities, like you said.
Yeah,
he would have before Mick was even on the floor, John Wick would have had him mangled.
Yeah,
with his bare hands.
rear naked choke.
Yeah. So there you go, mate. You don't think close the distance? You don't think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think within the context,
she kind of shoots him out of panic.
Yeah,
Just pulls the trigger. Hopes for
Yeah.
the best. More composure, mate.
Mm.
Just be
I don't know.
composed. in that situation.
I feel like you got to let her have it. Really.
Fine, let her have it. Fine.
I've got one more, and it's for when they're walking up Wolf Creek and the rain and the thunder starts. Old Kirsty gets her umbrella out, doesn't she? That is a terrible idea. What is the one thing that you shouldn't do if you're in a wide, flat expanse and there's a thunderstorm? Is get a fucking umbrella out, because it's the same reason they tell you not to hide under trees in a thunderstorm, because the lightning will hit the highest point in the area.
Yeah.
And if you are in a wide open plain, and I know that there's some incline, but I don't think that would get it.
No.
If you're in a wide open plain and you're
You'll be
holding
the
a
quickest route
metal
to ground.
pole, then she's going to get struck by lightning. It's a miracle she doesn't.
They even discuss it in the movie, mate.
They do, yeah. Well, they say about getting hit by lightning, but they don't say, put your fucking umbrella away, Kirsty, you idiot.
Yeah, they're like, oh, do you think the meteorite was drawn to this spot because of something like when lightning hits the ground?
Yeah.
And they should have gone, wait, that reminds me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they had ancient umbrellas here. Comet umbrellas.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Any final tips?
Yeah. I think they could have been saved early on if they'd set clear terms in the negotiation process.
Right.
So Mick shows up and he's like, don't worry, guys, I'll do it for free. I'd be like, well, that does inconvenience us. We don't want to go back to your place. Really? Come on, old boy, give us a lift into town. And if he says no, say, well, we'll make it worth your while. Town will have cash points. We'll get you cash out there. We will now pay you if we get to town. We can't pay you here, but we will pay you if you give us a lift to town.
Yeah. I don't think he's in it for the money, is he?
Probably not. He doesn't appear to be accumulating wealth.
No. He's got his own method of income.
True.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would fly with Mick.
You think so? If he was like, I'm going south, you're going north. You go, well,
Why don't you go north?
Yeah, how far is it? And you go, a few hours. You go, well, a few hours. Fine.
I don't think he's negotiating in bad faith, isn't he? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I suppose you could go, yeah, fine, I'll give you a lift to town, and then just drive them back to his house anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're trapped in the car.
Yeah.
What if they said, no, leave us here? What then?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, on that note, if you do know of any movies that you'd like us to cover on How to Survive, email in howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. Or you can tweet us at HowToSurvivePod. We had a couple of emails, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
First one's from Michael.
Hello,
Mike.
Michael.
who says, "Hey guys, first I just wanted to say I love this show and have finally caught up with your backlog, and you are officially my favourite horror movie podcast."
Wow, thank you.
I just finished your Train to Busan episode. Wanted to let you know one of the ideas you had for a zombie movie setting exists. So you remember you had the idea of a zombie movie where you're just in one spot, like trapped in a
cubicle,
Yeah.
basically.
Stalled in 2013 is a zombie movie about a maintenance worker trapped in the stall of a restroom in a corporate building. It's not going to be considered a classic anytime soon, but has a decent sense of humour and is well worth a watch. It's available on Netflix in the US. Keep up the good work, from Mike.
Thank you.
You looked into it, didn't you?
I watched the trailer and it does look quite rubbish.
Fair enough. You're not going to believe this, mate.
Go on.
I had an email in.
Yeah.
Kieran.
Yeah.
He's found a way through the firewall.
Popped his head above the parapet.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's he got to say for himself?
Just a wee listener suggestion from a long-time listener, Kieran. Yes, I'm back. And the suggestion is 28 weeks later.
Okay.
It's a good follow-up to 28 days later.
Yeah, that's probably the longest running distance between doing two films in the same franchise that we've got, isn't it? I think.
God bless him, yeah.
Maybe
it was like episode 8 or something.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Not bad suggestion, mate.
Yeah.
Kieran, consider yourself on probation. You've earned
for good
early release for good behaviour.
Yeah.
But one more fuck up and you're going back in the slammer.
Yeah.
No parole.
Well, thank you very much for your emails. HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com if you want to get in touch, or at HowToSurvivePod.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show, because that really helps us find a wider audience. Next week, Joe, it's cabin fever.
Fuck me.
I've got a fever, and the only cure is cabin.
Right. Fine. Good.
Yeah.
Eli Roth never made a bad film, has he?
No, absolutely not.
Always a master of taste and good form.
Taste and decency.
So that's next week.
Yeah.
We have to go now to see John Wick 3.
Yeah.
That will not be covered on the podcast.
No.
But we may
Can't
mention
cover religious texts. Until next week. That's not a podcast. This is a podcast.
So you did do. You are racist after all.